No, just a word. So, hi, Mr. Gutierrez. No, just a word. Not. I'm just reading the news, seeing all that you're having to deal with, little bit by little bit. CGTN reports on World Food Organization. Hold on, I want to get it right for record. World Food Program is appealing for money for refugees in Kenya. I've asked them to confirm, but I'm guessing that's 440,000, mostly Ethiopian refugees in Kenya. Ethiopia has been a bit of a sore point for a while for me as well, because I cannot figure out what's actually going on there. The internal, I don't want to use that word, Mr. Gutierrez, because peacetime, remember? I know the G word has been thrown all around about what's going on there, but that's allegedly and unconfirmed as yet. But genocide has been thrown around on social media regarding what's going on in Ethiopia quite a bit. I cannot confirm nor deny, so I work with what's on the internet. My question to you is this: who gets the paycheck? In terms of, I'm going to have to use that word. Am I going to have to use that word? But we must have rules about who pays up, who gets the check. You've just chased 440,000 people onto my land, and now I've got to feed them. Were they chased? See, this is the problem. No one really I hesitate to comment because it's a very touchy subject, Tigray. And I don't know the deeper details in terms of tribes and ethnic cleansing and what other politics is going on. There's quite a lot of interesting politics happened just before all of this started. I did come across one piece of information that was a very clear individual from Ethiopia just laying it on there, very political, some leader. But I don't get the file that tells you who Mr. Gutierrez and why we cannot. People are running for their lives more than being chased. Is what I'm feeling. Like a lot of what Kenya is dealing with is people that didn't wait, because Africa does have Rwanda to remind us all that genocide can happen whilst the entire world turns its back. So no, African people, when they hear the word genocide, they get the hell out of the way, is what they do. Those that can, to safe land, which was not Kenya. If I had to just imagine the story here for myself, because all unconfirmed. But Kenya's right next to Ethiopia. Tigray is quite high up, but if you're like, no, you get the hell out. That's just natural instinct to get the hell out. And I'm sure there's a similar camp in all of Kenya. Is the easiest place to get to in terms of, and probably the safest in terms of just where they are. I don't know what this is a problem, because now we have 440,000 refugees somewhere in Kenya in the bush. in a refugee. It looks really lovely. I like camp in Kenya. But I'm sure it's not lovely for those people. And hunger. So near. I don't believe the food. It's about who picks up the bill. Because Kenya can provide the food, but they have to get paid for it. Now, where do the laws stand here, Mr. Gutierrez, in terms of what are the agreements? There must be mechanisms here, because you can't keep your house in order now. I've got 500,000 of your citizens that are hungry, but we're in the middle of a pandemic and everyone's hustling hard to make ends meet, and many are not. And then we throw human rights at it, and we're like, we're gonna make a plan here. Figure out who the bill gets sent to. For now, I suppose, but I mean, who's going to pick up that bill? It's $40 million. I am only here with questions, Mr. Gutierrez. If you have all the information, I only have the questions for you. There has to be a cessation. We have to figure out a scenario where there's a cessation of what's going on in Ethiopia. It's enough now of that area. It's a global community. Like, there's only so much of that we are willing to breathe through before we collectively on the planet go, no more of that. We have to find a solution. It's like, we can pull the data, I'm sure, from Twitter in terms of how often was genocide hashtagged in a tweet by someone who's in Ethiopia, because IP address. That's the voice of the people speaking one word, genocide. Then the global community has to sit up and take notice. That's one fork of the scenario. Other fork of the scenario is that it's not, that it's an online game theory thing. And then it's an entirely different story. Then we need to continue to look at it, obviously, because still not right behavior that will need correcting on the network. But we have to be very sure which one of those two we're dealing with. And the easiest way is to look at the data that we have in terms of start here, because it's an easy piece of data to get, like how many accounts with IP addresses in Ethiopia without harming their privacy at all. It's just like, are you in Ethiopia? Yes, great. Have you ever hashtagged genocide Tigray? Yes or no? Count. You literally get a tweet count. That's it in terms of data from Twitter. But it will give you, you can obviously request like individual, you want to count of the individual accounts, not the tweets. Or maybe you want both of those, but you get just the number, that's it. No other data other than so many individual accounts tweeted the word genocide from this date to that date, along with Tigray. And those accounts generated this many tweets, this many retweets, and this many quoted tweets. Although that might be quite a bit of an algorithm. You'll have to have a conversation with the Twitter boss, please. But the first two should be easy. That gives you an idea of like what are we dealing with here? We have enough other data points to correlate that with how many of that is the population of Ethiopia. What are we talking about in terms of a poll number there? Let's using that word in Africa. And then it's another Security Council meeting about how do we deal with that? Because it's having all manner of knock-on effects all over the place. You can forget Mr. Gutierrez, not just in Africa either. I wonder what the statistic to Europe and the UK is about the sudden uptick in Ethiopian refugees everywhere. It has been going on for quite some time already. And we've not interfered, but should we maybe not interfere here somehow with some hard diplomacy at the very least? I don't know what's going on. They say rebels to me. I'm like, and the explanation I got via Twitter, via an Ethiopian who I asked for the question, please explain this to me, and someone answered. That happens almost never. And it was very clear that we've got, it's a political matter and a schism, allegedly, according to this, other people of the planet and people of Ethiopia, more importantly. Because I couldn't get the, like, why this suddenly. So, I don't know, follow the money. It's always about the money, isn't it? But now we've got this G word and we've got to take note of that now. We can't ignore it anymore. I have absolutely no idea, because it is, in terms of everything that's going on the planet right now, it has been the biggest question mark to me as to the why for the longest time. Ethiopia. Which means a very, very crucial piece of information is not part of the collective consciousness. It's not freely available. One very crucial piece of information is not freely available. That's why there's a big why around it, and why it's just nothing's happening around it anywhere. But now we have 440,000 refugees in Kenya. And our refugee story in terms of the globe is getting quite. And so how do we deal with it now? 21st century, knowing what we know and looking at climate change and looking at movement of the people and $40 million US, will that do it? Can they be permanently relocated? Because sometimes for peace, it's just the best thing. They're already not in their own country anymore. Seeing as we've had Afghan refugees, refugees from Afghanistan going all over the place. Should we not be thinking like that? Like, I have no idea what piece of land they're based on. Nothing. I know nothing other than this World Food Program call for money because not enough food. Quite a lot of people. So yeah, I don't know. That's why I come to Gutierrez. The big, I'm sure it's just one of, I don't even want to think about it in terms of in how many different places on the planet. So I'm just focusing on this one because it's connected to this big question mark in terms of geopolitical happenings. Tigray. What if we were to offer? I don't know if it's a tribal. If we can relocate consensually, of course, might open up a life-saving avenue, which will dissipate the aggression on the ground, potentially. I know it's a touchy subject. I don't like, that's why I'm talking around it like that. But I'm just going to ask the really difficult questions here because it's wear the check every day with me. And today was not normal. She pulled the handbrake on me. I was having fun. And then Fawn, Fire, Shasta, and really important trees are in danger. So global weather. It's still global weather at this problem as well, because we really have to get much better at this movement of the people. Refugee camps should have a time stamp on them in terms of like how long they're permitted to stay there before people have been relocated to safety, because no refugee camp is safe. No refugee camp on this planet can, I'm going to, just because it is like, it's like a difficult thing to do because we haven't been managing it properly, but so can presently state that they follow all of the human rights in the Universal Declaration. And as a global peoples, we have to be able to up our game as far as that's concerned, because weather refugees, never mind war refugees and economic refugees, I'm talking weather refugees. And they're not scary stories or whatever, it's already happening. Evacuations happening all over the place. And so refugee camps spring up internally with weather-related evacuations, which causes what we call homelessness, but is actually internal refuginess, actually. So we have to get better at this, being like more prepared for movement of the people everywhere, so that we don't ever have a situation that's now showing its face in Kenya, where there's enough people to start a whole, like a town, 140,000 people. That's a big town, really big. And there's a time limit to when that actually happens. pirate rules, like in Martian. The moment one of those people starts growing crops on that land, a thing happens in my imagination station. I have no idea where the law stands on this, but you see what I mean, just in terms of the story. Now they're growing crops next to their tent. This is no that then refugee becomes what used to be known in South Africa as squatter camps, temporary housing is the one of the new used. Our language has changed so much around this, but it's something that's been around for a very long time. So it's a time thing. A country, any sovereign country in the world, we need to change how this works. Let's take Africa, because Europe, I feel like they've incorporated, it's Africa always moving to the people, and we're moving towards AU and open borders anyway. But now we've got this thing happening in Ethiopia that needs sorting out. I wish I had a better idea of where. I don't know the lay of the land in Kenya either. Like, are they in the middle of the bush? How close are they to amenities, to the closest town, to the closest city? It is a sudden influx of a lot of people into your country, 500,000 people, basically. How to best incorporate them, because you probably can. Kenya, are you listening? The movement of African people in Africa is a very natural thing, but these people have now run from home with nothing. They have tents, from what I can see in the one picture that I have. And clearly you're doing a humanitarian thing. And world food is there, great, but they can't stay there. That's the thing that we must do differently than what's been happening up until now. The illusion, allowing the illusion that what's happening in Ethiopia is just going to stop tomorrow or next week, and then all these people will go back, that needs to be removed, because PTSD, and if the alleged G word is happening, then it returning to the scene of the crime. And then it becomes a humanitarian thing again. And no, you can't force a victim of crimes like that, crimes against humanity like that, to go back. So this is where you are, Kenya. You have 440,000 new Kenyans, temporary Kenyans, basically. So AU Matters becomes very important if you can't incorporate 440,000. There needs to be breaking off into groups, and other surrounding participating countries can each take a share, potentially family groups. But it's about the burden needs to be shared. Or We're working scenarios, Kenya. Or you decide, no, you can do with the injection of DNA into your populace. They seem to be incorporating well with your people. You're going to keep all of them inside Kenya. And then it's an inside Kenya thing. Yeah. In my scenario, I would still split them up so that they're spread across the country for future, just in terms of relations between tribes. It's best to make sure that the intermarriage happens as far across the country as possible, which means the refugees have to go to each corner of the country, split up. Because if you allow them to stay where they are, they become a tribal colony almost inside your country. And that's a point that creates potentials for problems in the future. If you spread them around, the quicker they can start working as well, like incorporated and just become part of your economy. It's like receiving 440,000 new individual talents. I don't know what Kenya is going to do with that, but I trust Kenya will do a Kenyan thing on it. Yeah? There are potentials here that are not scary, that have like allows us to expand and evolve and like just weave in some new to the old to bring some rejuvenation to everything. Refugee camps, temporary things, they have to be. They have to be. Maybe we can set a good example, Kenya, and figure out a way to do this so that it doesn't become an issue. Yet another one of that's not going to get any time, So build mark plan. African makes a plan. I'm handing the Tigray thing well over to Mr. Gutierrez to have another look, please, at the data, because there's been not much coming out of the UN about it. And I don't know why people keep calling out him, Mr. Gutierrez, out about it as well on his feed. So the request is a simple one, to just look at the actual data in terms of this people with IP addresses in Ethiopia using genocide as a hashtag. Just look at the data, just the numbers, nothing else. And then just of everything you already know because you have all the clearance. I think, I have no idea. Is there a law somewhere or a sanction, or I don't know, because I don't really truly understand what's going on. But it's having a cause effect. So something is definitely, well, we all know something's going on. Clearly, it has been in the news quite a lot, but not as much recently. And I mean, there's always been Ethiopians around in my country, refugees, not very many, but every now and again. They're very specific features. And I've recently seen some that I believe are newly arrived where I am. So Yeah, that is a long way to come to find safety. So I reckon we need to have another closer look here, add a couple of numbers to it, and then see how you feel about the subject. And in the meantime, Kenya will do an African thing and see if we can figure out a better way to do the refugee thing quicker. So it doesn't. We wait and see what happens next.